Mm. Okay.
No. He said I'll call him.
Okay.
Stand by. Business Power Hour starts in 25 seconds. 15 seconds. 10 seconds.
The BizNews Power Hour.
Welcome to the BizNews Power Hour, where we give you the rational perspective on business news that matters. And we sure do. This evening, we've got our colleague Jared Neves in the fine music radio studio in Cape Town, where Jared lives. Jared, you're going to be talking to us cars at about 6 o'clock.
Yes, the Toyota Starlet. It's actually a Suzuki Baleno in disguise, but we'll talk about that a bit later.
Did you understand any of that?
Absolutely nothing. I think the jargon that the petrol head Jared Neves brings out is just beyond my level of expertise.
But we will ask you to please explain. We heard Toyota and we heard
Starlet.
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 Yes,
It's Toyota Starlet. And then
it's quite a
Suzuki.
historical name in Toyota's history, actually. So lots to unpack.
Looking forward to that, Jared. And before that, we're going to have another of our colleagues, Clive Eckstein, who, well, I guess most people know Clive was a South African cricketer. He was the commercial director of Cricket South Africa. He got caught up in all the politics there. To our good fortune, he left Cricket South Africa, joined BizNews about, 9 months ago. And he's going to take us through the craziness that continues at Cricket South Africa because Clive's left.
And Alec, I mean, we get to hear all of Clive's pearls of wisdom on a daily basis, but unfortunately our listeners don't. So they get that opportunity this evening.
Indeed they do. So there we've got the inside track on the whole chaotic cricket story. There are no more Proteas. Well, there aren't going to be after Friday. So South Africa is not going to be playing international cricket anymore until they sort out their mess, according to the minister. We've also got cryptocurrency. We'll be talking to the general manager of Luna Africa about that. Jackie had an interview with Neil Birch, the chief executive of Novus. Be interesting to hear what he had to say about Media24 selling down its 17% stake in that business. And of course, this being Festive Friday means after 6, after Jared is
Carrie Adams and her guest, Jonah Naidu. And, you know, as always, Alec, Friday comes and I've got the orange linen out. I'm consistent with that one.
Well, you are. I was a little inconsistent. I'll join you next week with the orange. Well, I don't know if I've got. I do. I have an orange shirt. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Okay, orange it is. And we will be hearing from Carrie with wine in the studio because it's really ridiculous. If you got a Carrie's corner and you're talking about wine, why doesn't she actually come and clink glasses with you? I don't drink, so I'm no good. Dudu just refuses. Are you fasting? Or she's fasting. But Carrie, well, I'm afraid you're going to have to keep her company.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to that one, Alec.
As we always do. Thank you very much for being with us this evening. Of course, lots happened today, although it is Festive Friday. Just to let you know, we're not here on Monday. So there'll be no BizNews Power Hour on Monday. It's impossible to get people from the business community in a long weekend to come and participate. So we thought, look, best thing not to bore everybody. We'll have beautiful music on Monday evening, and the Power Hour will be back again on Wednesday after the historic 27th of April. And actually, before we go into any of this, how old were you in 1994, 27th of April?
I wasn't born yet.
And Dudu, 2 years old. Jared?
I wasn't born yet.
Yeah, it's quite astonishing. Okay, so I've got to just tell you the story because up until the 27th of April, 1994, there was so much concern that there was going to be violence. We had the fringe elements in the country who really didn't want the election to go ahead. And when the big day came, people queued for kilometers after kilometers. Most people in this country had never voted before. It was the most amazing. I get shivers down my spine just remembering it. So when the 27th of April comes up every year, it really is a big deal. It's a big, big deal for us as South Africans. And, you know, we're going to enjoy it as a holiday, but it's also good to remember what a historic occasion that was for us and how we became a new nation on that day. So I'm looking forward to the 27th of April. And even though you guys were not around or very young at the time, 2 years old, Dudu was, it still is something that you need to just embrace and participate in it, as I'm sure many people who are listening to us this evening are making their own plans. I suppose the last time of the year you can have a proper braai as well, because it starts getting cold.
Exactly, Alec. And I think it is important, even for the born frees, to understand what the day represents and how big of a day it actually was in the history of South Africa.
Yeah. We have a troubled past, but hopefully we have a better future. Let's find out what exactly happened today from our editor-at-large, Jackie Cameron. Here's the flash briefing.
South African prosecutors say they are seeking the extradition of a British national who has been implicated in a fraudulent deal with state power company Eskom. Michael Lomas appeared in the Westminster Magistrates Court this week and was granted bail of £100,000 and submitted additional surety of £250,000. Lomas's arrest and court appearance emanate from months of talks with the UK authorities about a fraud and corruption case relating to Eskom's payment of R745 million to Tubular Construction Projects. That company worked on its new Kusile power plant. An escalation clause in the contract exposed Eskom to a R1.4 billion liability. Lomas has been indicted together with 4 suspects, including 2 former Eskom executives who were arrested in December and are next due to appear in court in June. The UK courts will decide whether Lomas has a case to answer in South Africa. Steinhoff's discount retailer Pepco says it will open its first Pepco-branded store in Spain this month and 10 more by September. This steps up its expansion ahead of an expected IPO this year. The group, which also trades as Poundland in the United Kingdom and deals in Europe, is still battling the fallout of its 2017 accounting scandal. Steinhoff says it has decided to seek necessary consent from its financial creditors for a listing of Pepco Group. That decision came in the wake of reports last week that Pepco would list its shares in Warsaw rather than London. This could become Poland's biggest IPO this year. In other Steinhoff news, an ex-Deloitte partner is facing disciplinary action in the Netherlands for an improper audit of Steinhoff International prior to the South African retailer's near collapse more than 3 years ago. The Dutch Authority for the Financial Markets accuses Patrick Seinstra of failing to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence from the annual accounts, it says. Deloitte refused to sign off on Steinhoff's accounts in late 2017, leading to the resignation of then-CEO Marcus Jooste. The firm had been auditing Steinhoff for years, initially in South Africa and then from Europe after the company moved its primary listing to Germany. In the probe that followed the scandal, PwC uncovered about $8 billion worth of irregular transactions between Steinhoff and 8 firms between 2009 and 2017. Bitcoin headed for its worst week in more than a year as a proposed capital gains tax increase for wealthy Americans intensified the volatility whiplashing the world's largest cryptocurrency. A fresh bout of selling on Friday drove Bitcoin down as much as about 8% to about $48,000 a Bitcoin as it continued to take out key technical levels. This week's rout marks the worst period for Bitcoin since March 2020. Even digital currencies that have managed to eke out gains over the past few days, like Ether and the satirical Dogecoin, tumbled at the start of the weekend as the crypto space turned into a sea of red. For more on whether you should be investing in cryptocurrencies, the risks, rewards, and pitfalls, visit the BizNews YouTube channel to watch the latest BizNews Finance Friday webinar. Labour Union Solidarity has sent a list of more than 120 competent and willing engineers to Lindiwe Sisulu, Minister of Human Settlements, Water and Sanitation. It says they can easily replace the 24 Cuban engineers who will cost millions. This comes after Minister Sisulu welcomed the arrival of 24 Cuban engineers in South Africa earlier this week, who have been brought to the country to address what she says is the ongoing water crisis. The use of these engineers forms part of a 2014 bilateral agreement between South Africa and Cuba on cooperation in water resource management and water supply. And that brings to a close your BizNews Flash Briefing. For more on those and the other main stories of the day, do head over to biznewsradio.com. I'm Jackie Cameron for BizNews.
You're listening to the BizNews Power Hour, brought to you by the team at biznews.com. Wow, there are lots of people who are catching their breath after that flash briefing. Mike Lomas, a regular guest in the studio when I was doing business radio shows in the 90s and the 2000s, the chief executive then of Group 5, when it was still a company that in fact was a significant construction company. He's right in the middle of a huge scandal, as you heard there, and we will try and get more on that story on Wednesday, and perhaps even try and get hold of Mike Lomas himself. He's sitting in the UK. Interesting to know whether or not he's going to be extradited back to South Africa. But scary stuff that was going on during the Gupta regime. Okay, let's find out what happened with the markets. And BrightRock believes that with every change in life comes opportunity, and the markets aren't any different. The daily movements in the markets mean change for us all, sometimes small, sometimes big. This daily market report is made just for you by BrightRock, the first ever needs-matched life insurance that changes as your life changes. Here's Justin.
The JSE All Share Index was up at 67,300. The highlights included Asset Manager 91 was up 2.5% to a shade under $50 a share. European mall owner Nepi Rockcastle was up 3.4% to 98 Rand. Discovery was down 2.25% to 130 Rand a share. And in the US, Coinbase is slightly up to 300 Rand a share, despite Bitcoin being in free fall. In the currency markets, the Rand was weaker against all the major currencies to 14 Rand 29 cents to the dollar, 19 Rand 80 cents to the sterling, and 17 Rand 23 cents to the euro. Gold is down at $1,775 an ounce. Brent crude is trading at $66 a barrel, and the premier cryptocurrency will put you back 700K Bitcoin.
Sorry, I was just looking up Mike Lomas. He was at Group 5 for many years and then retired, left there in 2007 to be replaced by Mike Upton. So it's actually quite surprising when people that you know and have interviewed and were supposedly fine, upstanding citizens are suddenly on the back foot, well, in court being accused of massive fraud and corruption with Eskom, which is a public utility.
It's ugly, Alec.
This market report was made just for you by BrightRock, the first ever needs-matched life insurance that changes as your life changes. Marius Rates joins us now. He is the general manager of Luno Africa. And Marius, it's been a wild week for cryptocurrencies. What happened, Justin? Before we go, we pick up with Marius. What's the action been like on crypto this week?
Very volatile, as always. Bitcoin has plummeted around 20% from its highs. Remember that 18% or lower is regarded bear market territory. Although, do we consider Bitcoin a financial asset as of yet? I mean, Coinbase going through an IPO in the States, many people are considering it to be that way. But Marius, it would be great to hear your opinion on this. What do you think of the Bitcoin price action over the last week or so?
Evening, Justin and Alec. Thanks for having me on the show tonight. It's been an interesting week. As you rightly said, the Bitcoin price is down 20% over the last 5 days. And even after such a drop, it's still hard to believe that it's still up 72% year to date. So I think people forget that often. I think we've been in extreme greed territory for quite a long period now, and many commentators have said that the market was bound to correct, and that this recent price drop is well within the bounds of the typical volatility that we've become used to in the Bitcoin market. It has been the ongoing theme. I think if we look back to 2017 and during the previous bull run, we saw several 20 to 30% drawdowns over the course of that year. Now, whether this is triggering a new bear cycle, I'm not sure. I think if we look back over the last year, we look back over the global and still the current financial crisis, it's really created the perfect storm for crypto. And firstly, all of the uncertainty. Now, you mentioned taxes in the US, economic recovery packages, vaccines, weakening currencies, etc. And we see this not only in the price, but we're seeing new retail investors buying Bitcoin as an inflation hedge. Not everyone, certainly not everyone, but some gold investors buying gold. We now also see taking up small positions in crypto. So it's not a case of Bitcoin replacing gold, but I think over time we'll see that flip. And sure, also a new distribution channel. So we've seen PayPal enter the space. Last week we saw Venmo, a PayPal company, entering the space and making it possible for people to buy and sell crypto. So I think there's still a strong demand. We're seeing better distribution or easier access and safer access, hopefully. So I think we still have lots of momentum.
I'm just looking at the rand price of Bitcoin, Morris, and as you mentioned, 2017, when it started the year 2017 around 10,000 rand, it then had a crazy surge towards the end of the year to get to nearly 300,000 rand, but then it halved within 2 months to 100,000, and then by the end of 2018, it was down to under 50,000. That kind of volatility, if you buy at the wrong time, can actually put you in the poorhouse. Are people being sucked into Bitcoin on the anticipation that this is a kind of a sure bet, but they're not remembering that it can be that volatile?
For sure, Alec. You see a lot of greed in the market, a lot of first-time investors entering the space, people that have never bought shares or made any other investments entering the crypto space, putting in money. So definitely, I think, and the saying that don't invest money that you can't afford to lose is now truer than ever. And so I think if you look across emerging markets, not only in SA, across Africa, we're seeing a lot of first-time investors, and it could be because of lower minimums, it could be because of easier access. But I think over the last year, lots of people went on about the institutional-led demand, and that is true. We've seen lots of institutional buying, Tesla, Square, MicroStrategy. But in emerging markets, where we don't have that level of sophistication when it comes to regulations, we've seen more retail demand and a mixture. So we've seen speculators, which we can classify as the greed side, and then we've had more sophisticated buyers as well. And we see that in the data. We see people buying a set amount of Bitcoin on a monthly basis on payday. And we see people monitoring the price of Bitcoin. Whenever the price drops, people buy the dip. So we can see all the activity. And so it's certainly a mixture of greed. So people wanting to make a quick buck in the short run and they burn their fingers. But then we're also seeing investors, people actually taking small positions. I think single-digit percentage positions in cryptocurrency. And we're seeing more of that compared to 2017.
You've mentioned greed 4 times now, and you said it was the greed cycle. Just unpack that for us. What is the greed cycle?
Greed cycle is FOMO. So it's fear of missing out. So it's people hearing about crypto over the radio, people reading about it in the news, but they don't understand the technology behind it. They don't understand the risks involved. And so because cryptocurrency is fairly easy to access, and we've actually had easier access over the last couple of years, people started buying it through word of mouth and didn't understand the risk. So, but on the other hand, you can also argue that the greed cycle to some degree fueled the market, and it led to more useful or better use cases. It's led to increased volatility, increased market capitalization. It's led to increased liquidity. So it's become easier to exit positions, buy and sell, which isn't ideal because sure, some people would have lost money. But you see that in currencies, you see that in Forex. We saw that over the last year in the US, where everyone rushed off to some of the investment apps to buy stocks. So it's not limited to crypto only, but there's certainly a big element in crypto for that as well.
Marius, let's forget about the 20% drawdown this week. The general sentiment towards cryptos and Bitcoin has been euphoric this year. We've seen the Coinbase IPO. Does that not give you some ideas for Luna itself, maybe to list at these prices, at these valuations, give your VC investors and maybe some of the partners a chance to exit at a great price?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, I think it's very impressive for them to pull this off in our industry. They've built a very impressive and successful company to fetch a valuation of $85 billion. It's very impressive. And it's good for the market. Until now, the focus has been on cryptocurrencies rather than the businesses around them. So I think this will put the spotlight on the businesses. It will show some of the sophistication we're seeing there. But to answer your question, they will be under tremendous pressure to produce short-term results. So they will have to report on quarterly earnings, and they will have to show growth at all costs. So I think for us at Luna, being a privately held company, we can set our own strategy. We're not under the same amount of pressure. So I think we're happy with that status for now. But I think overall it's good for the market.
Marius, 10 days ago, Bitcoin cost you 922,000 Rand. Today, you get 711,000 Rand. I mean, those are big numbers, but it's also a big decline, 200,000 Rand, if you happen to have bought a Bitcoin at the top 10 days ago on the 13th of April. When you talk to investors, do you warn them about this kind of volatility?
Absolutely, Alec. We have to, firstly, we can't give any financial advice. So we provide the infrastructure, the product where people can make their own decisions and buy and sell. Don't have advisors advising clients when to buy in and how much to buy. So when someone's not sure, we would guide them. We would say, these are some of the methods, for example, Rand cost averaging. So some people use that strategy very effectively, where they buy a set or fixed amount of crypto on a monthly basis and average their cost price at that period of time. So certainly it's very important to highlight the risks. Crypto is still very, very volatile. It's still a fairly young market, despite being around for 12 years now. And the volatility or reducing volatility won't be magic of the market. It will take time. As more people enter the market, we should see the volatility come down over time.
Marius Reitz is the General Manager of Luna Africa. You're listening to the BizNews Power Hour, brought to you by the team at biznews.com. Well, another member of our team is in studio with us tonight. He is our commercial director, Clive Eckstein, who's well known for his cricketing prowess and I think at the home of golf, some of your golfing prowess nowadays, Clive. What's going on in Cricket South Africa?
Yeah, not a good day, Alec. The Minister of Sport, Minister Ntetwa, has informed Cricket South Africa, the interim board, the Members' Council, of his intention to invoke, I think it's Section 13 of the Sports Act, which basically means that he's going to withdraw funding, which is not the end of the world for cricket, but bigger problem is withdraw recognition.
So that means they can't play as Proteas anymore.
You can't play as a national team. None of the national teams, men and women, or under 19, would be allowed to play as national teams.
That's drastic.
It is drastic. The minister has been, in my opinion, very patient. There is a back door because he, in his statement, his intention, and it'll only come into being when it's gazetted. And as far as I know, that takes a week or so. So the Members' Council, which is really the highest body in Cricket South Africa, it's the ball's firmly in their court.
He's been patient?
He has been. He's been going on with the Members' Council and the interim board for probably the better half of 6 months. It goes around the changing of the MOI and the Memorandum of Incorporation. And there was a meeting last week, Saturday, where the Members' Council agreed before to change the MOI. You need 75% or more, and they never got that. And it really goes around more independent directors on the board and an independent chair.
So what happens now to cricketers who were hoping to play for South Africa against international teams?
If this comes into being, you won't be able to play. A bigger issue is and the minister has said he's going to inform the ICC, the International Cricket Council, and they are very clear, like most sporting bodies, if there's government interference in a sport, they have the right to suspend that team or that country. And if we are suspended, then it has a whole knock-on effect financially for the game. You know, it's not just about, obviously the most important are the players, but there are a whole lot of other people who make a living out of cricket. Just think of ground staff, coaches, etc., and they have a massive knock-on effect.
So the sponsors.
Yep.
When we saw issues before, Standard Bank decided that they wouldn't continue with Cricket South Africa, and they had been for how many years? It must have been a couple of decades that they'd been the major sponsor of the sport. Things must be pretty much out of hand. How do you get sponsors back, A? And secondly, how do you fix this mess?
I think the change of the MOI is a good one. You know, not just going independent directors will fix everything, because you still need a lot of cricket knowledge in the game. And I think you can still get independent directors who are excel in their field, be it legal, marketing, finance, etc. And there's enough cricket knowledge within the system. So I think the MOI, it was supposed to have happened back 2012 when Judge Nicholson gave his report, and cricket then wanted to change and they didn't. So we are, 8-9 years, nearly probably 10 years now down the line. It still hasn't happened. And I think the minister now has said, this is the only way for us to fix the governance issues and move forward. Cricket is funded by broadcast, firstly, and secondly by sponsors. And if you're not playing, there's no broadcast money. And sponsors will get irritated. It wouldn't surprise me if sponsors almost take a break, not break out of the game, but don't pay anything. So that, you know, because if they pay now, they don't have any opportunity to get bang for their buck.
In South African soccer, it went through very difficult times, Sticks Maroe, lots of corruption, etc. At that point in time, no one would touch it. The sponsors all withdrew. They only came back when things had stabilized. Is that a possibility here, or could the stabilization happen quickly enough that the existing sponsors aren't going to run for the hills?
I think this could happen very quickly if the Members' Council come to their senses and something is done, because the minister has given them a backdoor, in my opinion, because only comes into play when it's gazetted. So you've probably got a week, maybe 10 days. If they move quickly, this could move on, and sponsors, players, and the rest, it carries on. So it was a bit of a speed bump in the road. If they don't, and South African cricket does get suspended, it wouldn't surprise me if sponsors withdraw. You don't go to the World Cup, big paydays.
What World Cup is coming?
T20 World Cup at the end of the year, October, November.
And what other tours are scheduled?
The men's team is supposed to be going to the West Indies, the middle of the year, June, July. So you wouldn't be able to tour. So it has a massive knock-on effect.
Any of the big countries, big cricketing countries, India, England, Australia, on the schedule in the near future?
No, the World Cup's the big one. So, you know, and the way sport works, and certainly cricket, is when tours come into South Africa, those rights belong to Cricket South Africa, and they on-sell those to broadcasters. So you've got to get this fixed and get it fixed quickly and then move forward.
What's the best case scenario here?
Best case scenario is that it doesn't get gazetted, and Members' Council come to an agreement with the interim board, the minister. I'm not too sure her. They change the MOI and we move forward, and then we can carry on.
Worst case?
Worst case, you get the minister, it comes into play. The minister does use his powers, so we can't tour, we can't play. I think sponsors will become, as you mentioned about soccer, they withdraw. Very hard to get sponsors back in. And then you don't tour, you don't go to the World Cup. That'll have drastic.
Can you start a parallel body? Is it possible, if Cricket South Africa is so messed up that the government minister has to step in to suspend them, could there be enough of a groundswell to say, oh, we don't want to play with these clowns, we're going to play with different people?
I wouldn't say that's that's realistic, because you do need, as a national body, you could do it as a private, you could start cricket as a privateer, I suppose.
Like your Liverpool guys try to do in England.
Like
huh?
yeah, but you see the ramifications of that. And certainly you want national cricket. We want the Proteas play. We want to see the guys. We want to see Temba. You know, Temba, Dean, Dane, the three captains of the national team, came out this week and were very vocal in their trying to get this settled and move on. They were saying
Well,
that,
not surprisingly.
no, quite right. They want to play cricket.
And the administrators are stopping them.
Yeah, it's quite a complex thing because you've got a members council, which is made up of all the affiliates presidents, so the members of Cricket South Africa, and that is where the problem is. The interim board has been appointed by the minister, has been in place for about, probably 8 months now.
Is there a lot of politics in cricket?
There's politics in sport, definitely, and it doesn't matter if it's South African cricket or any other sporting code throughout the world. You will have politics, definitely.
You're listening to the BizNews Power Hour, brought to you by the team at biznews.com. So we have our internal experts on various subjects, including our very own Clive Eckstein, giving us the insight on chaos. I mean, a sport. Can you imagine being Temba Bavuma? Here he is, the captain of the side, and he can't play. He can't take them out.
It's a very sad situation, Alec. Alec, if I can just tell you a story, all I've ever grown up with, and cricket was my first love. You know, it didn't break my heart like my second love, my grade 7 girlfriend. But
what was her name?
I can't tell you those
What
details.
was her name?
10 to 12 years. We have the Cullis and Boucher era. Absolutely phenomenal. Waking up during the Christmas holidays, turning on the TV at 5 o'clock in the morning, watching them in Australia, dominating them on Australia. The last 5 years, reality has hit like a ton of bricks and our cricket team's gone sideways. And you've got to ask yourself the question, when performance starts to slide, does that sort of move into the boardroom and things like that? Because I'm sure there's lots
Or was
of
it
press
caused by the boardroom?
That's also a good point.
What was her name? What did you call her?
Danny.
Danny. Oh, Danny. Well, Danny is going to get someone's going to tell Danny, do you remember Justin? She's going to say, oh, of course. Have you got his number? So she was the her. You know, often when the guys are really drunk, they talk about her.
I was grade 7, Alec.
Jared, have you got a grade 7 girlfriend you want to tell us about?
Certainly not that I want to tell you about, no.
But you do want to tell us about the Toyota Starlet.
Yes, Toyota's Etios replacement. So the Etios, as we all know, I mean, they're everywhere, was wildly popular for the brand in South Africa. Initially lauded as a Taz replacement, it filled the budget segment in Toyota's range really well. But it was getting on a bit in terms of age. And so Toyota decided to replace it with the Starlet. So if you look at the Starlet, it may look a bit familiar to you. And that's because it is actually just a rebadged Suzuki Baleno. The Baleno, of course, has been on sale for 2-3 years now in South Africa. And while it's done well, it hasn't sold quite as well as Suzuki's other offerings like the Swift or the Ignis, for example. And it really just shows Toyota's reputation in South
What's
Africa.
G-badged? Come on. Yeah, you know, when you read a paragraph and somebody puts a word in there you can't understand, you go and look it up so you can carry on with the paragraph. You said G-badged.
No, I said, sorry, rebadged.
Oh,
So essentially,
rebadged.
Yeah.
I Carrie's here, and we never know with her if there was something rude there that was coming out.
no, nothing rude
You
here.
know
Because
what
she
I was
would have
gonna
jumped
say?
on
Did
it.
you say G badge or G spot?
Oh dear.
I told you.
Oh, there's
Come on,
naughty
Carrie's
corner.
here, and she's got her one, so you're in trouble, Jared. Okay.
Hello, Jared. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Carrie?
I'm perfect. All the better for seeing you on that screen in front of me.
Oh, glory. Okay. Come on. We're talking cars now,
So-
not wine just yet.
So rebadge is essentially Toyota has, you could call it an alliance with Suzuki, and basically they, how do I put this? They use one another's products and market them as their own. So, like for example, you can go to a Suzuki dealership and buy a Baleno, or you could walk into a Toyota dealership and buy a Starlet. The
And they're
exact
the
same
same.
car,
Same car.
exact same car.
No, that's
Uh,
horrendous. And
they
which
do it with
what is the price of the two?
so this is the very interesting part about it all, because everyone goes, oh, you just choose whichever one you like, Toyota, Suzuki. But if you look at it this way, the Suzuki range only offers three derivatives, whereas the Toyota range offers five, three trim levels: the basic XI, your mid range XS, and your top of the range XR. And both the XS and XR are available with either a manual or an automatic. The specific model I drove was the XS with an automatic. I would definitely tell you to get the manual, because this automatic is it's not a good match with the car. But coming back to that alliance, basically, these two companies work together and market their products in different countries, for example, where they think it will be successful. So with this, for example, you look
So
at
who's the price? No, no, no. Tell me the price. Do you pay more for the Toyota than the Suzuki, or
Now
less?
you see, it depends on the trim level. So they've been clever in a sense, and they haven't priced either or out of competition. Go, oh, I might as well get the Suzuki or the Toyota. So they all have varying spec levels and so on. But the thing is, for me, Toyota's reputation has meant that when the Starlet came out, the sales skyrocketed. Sales that the Baleno never saw. The Starlet became one of the best-selling cars in South Africa instantly. And I think it's because simply it's a Toyota, and we know what Toyota's reputation is in South Africa. But number two, if you look at it this way, if you're living out in the middle of Bloemfontein or any small town, chances are there's a Toyota dealership there.
Mm.
There's not going to be a Suzuki dealership there. So number one, it's the dealer network that you have when buying the Toyota. But then the Suzuki counters with a 4-year 60,000 kilometer service plan, whereas the Starlet only offers a 3-year 45,000 kilometer service plan. So you really actually have to think about which one suits you best.
It sounds to me like a Toyota is going to suit you best. It's the same car, but you've got this much wider network. If you break down, I remember, Jared, when with my beautiful Peugeot, which I love to the end of the world. Unfortunately, I was driving on KZN's roads, the R103, and I hit one pothole, which took out two tires. Now, usually one tire is okay, but and this is on a main road. Things are not going that well in my old homeland at the moment. To try and get a replacement tire for that Peugeot 3008 was impossible. I managed to finally get one in Pietermaritzburg after trying Howick, where they told me forget it. Now, if I had a Toyota just around the corner, I'm sure someone would have been able to help me out.
Yeah, and I think that is the appeal with a Toyota badge, and I think that's why they sold that much better badged as Toyotas. But in any case, both of them are frankly superb cars. I myself haven't driven one bad Suzuki. It is such a surprising brand. They come with the engines on. You look at the power figures, you go, oh gosh, that's not very powerful. But because the bodies, they are so light, these cars feel energetic. They've got a joie de vivre to them that makes them a joy to drive. You just pop down to the shops and you having a laugh, changing gears, enjoying yourself, and you look down, you're doing 50 kilometers an hour. And
Is that
that's
fast for a Suzuki?
no, it's not fast for anything, but it's that ability to bring that driving enjoyment over at any speed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, coming back to the automatic gearbox, I would personally avoid it, because when I was driving, it just feels like it saps the energy out of that vibrant package. And it really needs a manual gearbox. And besides, you pay just under 243,000 rand for the automatic, whereas you can have the manual with the same amount of equipment for 20,000 rand less.
And have more fun. It sounds like.
Yes, a lot more fun.
Okay, so the Starlet is around about about a R250,000, which sounds like quite an investment. Is it aimed at first, like you would get with the houses, aimed at first-time buyers? Is this aimed at a younger market or at people who are retiring?
I think this is one of those cars that's aimed at everyone in a sense. Basically, how you'd look at your Volkswagen Polo Vivo, it's a car for everyone. It would suit anyone, a young mom, a young dad, someone that just needs to nip from A to B, a first-time driver. Yeah, and it would suit them all. It would suit your granny going to fetch pension, for example, because they are so easy to drive.
Jared, how would you compare that? Let me take a base case, a Polo Vivo. I'm in the market to buy a car. I need it to be a reasonable price. A Polo Vivo versus the Starlet?
Look, honestly, you can't go wrong with either. Genuinely. The Polo, for example, obviously has that more conservative, more upmarket look that appeals to a lot of people. And the interior feels a lot more solid in the sense of the quality of the material. So it's denser, thicker, soft touch, especially on the dashboard. But I think with the Starlet, price to price, like comparing an equivalent model to an equivalent model, you are going to get a lot more equipment from the Starlet. And as far as I can see, it's got a bigger interior and it's got a bigger boot as well. My favorite is the Starlet, but I mean, personally, if you had to buy a Polo Vivo, you haven't done anything wrong.
Jared, you've given us lots of insight as well. Do you know much about wine?
No, unfortunately, I don't drink.
Okay, so you and I are in the same
There was
camp
a
here.
problem. I knew there was a problem
with-
with Jared.
What's the problem with Jared and me? Is there a problem with me too?
I'm going to give him that same de-alcoholized wine that I gave you.
Jared,
Okay.
Carrie,
no.
I actually had some last week, and it I don't know, I can't even remember the brand, but to me, it tasted like someone put half a glass of water in my rosé.
Stick to grape juice. It's actually nicer.
Carrie, don't worry about them. That's just more for us.
More for us, Justy. More for
What a
us.
pleasure, Carrie.
Well, Carrie's Corner officially starts now
It's
on a
officially now.
festive
I can see
Friday.
Jared trembling behind his desk.
Well, he's at Fine Music Radio in Cape Town, so
Yes, I know.
he's keeping the guys there,
Yes, on an even
under
keel.
control. And he's in a beautifully soundproofed.
So are we.
Yeah, but he gets people walking past and they watch him and he waves at them.
Like a celeb.
Well, like he is a celeb.
Oh,
Jared, what's it
goodness.
like being a celeb in Cape Town?
Oh, I wouldn't know myself. There's far bigger celebs here, or at least people that think they are.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone's a celeb in Cape Town.
Carrie, who are you talking to tonight?
I'm speaking to Jonah Naidu. So Jonah Naidu and I go back a couple of years. He is one of the founding members of a very trendy, little vibey, niche retail liquor outlet in the high street of Parkhurst. And he and his partner, Martin Pienaar, have, I think, done an amazing job of weathering the COVID storm. It's not easy to be a retailer, It's definitely not easy to be a retailer in the liquor space at the moment in South Africa. And it's even more difficult to be a retailer in the liquor space in, I think it's a 38 or 48 or maybe 50 square meter shop. Jonah, are you with us on the line?
Yeah, good evening, Carrie. And I couldn't do a better job at that introduction.
Thanks so much for joining us in my naughty corner. We're going to have lots of fun, and I hope that you had a drink or two before you joined us. Did you?
Definitely got a glass poured here. Don't worry about that.
What's in your glass?
So I've got, I think probably the best value for me is that Seriously Old Dirt, Belafonte's. So yeah.
So he was one of my first podcast interviews when I first got sort of roped into this very happy space that's BizNews. I interviewed Mike Ratcliffe because, do you remember, Alec? We had Mike in another studio. It wasn't this one.
Yeah, we
were somewhere.
this is version 2. Version 1 had lots of glass, if you remember, and so
We're
it kind of bounced off
actually. We're quite nomadic at BizNews at the moment.
Well, wait until the 7th of May.
Wait.
7th of May, we're in our new
We're
studios
getting fancy schmancy.
Capitol Hill.
So, Jonah, we did do Mike Ratcliffe because Seriously Old Dirt is one of my favorite go-tos as well. But the other day I had, in fact, yesterday I had a meeting with Jonah and his partner Martin, both of whom are businessmen in their own right and do stuff other than the little vibey store in the high street. And we caught up for a cup of coffee yesterday and we were chatting about the difficulties of making this whole thing work. And it's really not. And Jonah, I'm terrified to ask the question because I don't know if Tito's listening, but did you bootleg?
Certainly not, Carrie.
That's not what I heard.
Not for the record, anyway.
Not for the record. No, jokes aside,
One
I
had
know
to do
none of us
what
were
one had to
allowed
do.
to. We weren't allowed
Yeah,
to.
of
But
course.
how did you manage to stay alive during last year, where we all know what the margins are on liquor, and I know that everybody's going to be saying, "Hwa, hwa, 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 they all make loads of money." We don't. How did you survive?
Yeah, so very interesting. I mean, you're quite right. Our store is pretty small. It's boutique-y, and it's a neighborhood and community business in Parkhurst. That's how we started.
Why did you
we
start
went into
it?
lockdown.
Can I ask you why you started it before we do lockdown? You were making perfectly good money as an accountant or whatever. Why did you go into booze?
I ask myself that question all the time, Carrie. No, I mean, this thing came out of a passion project. Martin and I were in our business collecting wine and trading wine with friends and family. And, we thought, we could do this. Little did we realize what we were getting into the retail game, and then the wine industry, and all of those compounded was something else for us. But, we went into lockdown as a traditional retailer on the high street in Parkhurst. I think we had 22 weeks of being locked down.
I know, it's ghastly.
4 lockdowns in that period of time. In the first few days of the lockdown, we are, quite unsure of how this thing would all pan out and whether we would survive, actually.
Yeah.
But we actually went into building the store. We always had an online store. It never had the sales, we have and enjoy today. And we kept building it. We kept the staff, and we kept, building and adding content and products onto our store. And, used the lockdown and the rumored lockdowns and the president's talks,
yes,
those all fueled, the online market. And we weren't exempted. I think nobody was.
No.
In e-commerce. Everybody saw a spike in e-commerce over that time. And I think that was, played in our favor over that time. So we were very lucky that, people were looking online. We were available. And that's taken our store from, community store in Parkhurst to a national presence.
Jonah,
We also had to.
I've got a question for you and Carrie, and I know that the guys who in the petrol business do this. They estimate what's going to happen to the petrol price at the end of the month, and they either stock up their tanks or they run them down. And they trade in that way. They make a lot of money. Did you guys do that ahead of Cyril's speeches? Because some of them, we had surprises where you couldn't have liquor. Others of them, things actually went wrong. It'd be very interesting if you did trade, and then could you make money out of that?
Jonah, you go first.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very interesting because I think you raise a number of points, Alex. I think what stifled some of that trading with, excess supply and then demand was, the logistics and the warehousing could not cope with the kind of demand we saw in the industry. So, unfortunately, we weren't able to. So often that, when we'd get into the lockdown, it was, the famous words "with immediate effect" was telling on our
blood
business.
runs cold, I know, on a Sunday night.
Exactly. And, we had very little prep. So I think the business models, like you say, in the oil industry and that are really geared for that for people to trade. We didn't have that luxury. And, getting product up from Cape Town, there were at some point, Carrie, you'll remember, there was a shortage of champagne because as France went to a lockdown, we weren't able to get that in over December.
Yeah.
So it was very tricky.
It was very tricky, and we were actually, to be fair, Jonah, let's be honest, we'll just throw it all our pants down in Park Station here, but we were actually helping each other, weren't we, as retailers? I mean, Jonah would phone me at Norman Goodfellows and say, "We're absolutely out of this. Can we borrow, or can you help?" And they did likewise for us. And I'd hazard a guess that there was a lot of that helping that was going on within the retail community, because the supply chain was just so damaged by the stop, start all the time. So it was really, really huge business interruption. But Jonah, have you come out of COVID and the lockdowns slicker, smarter, smoother, more efficient?
I would say most definitely. I think we've we've emerged digitally better, out of COVID. I think we're less reliant on a physical retail store than we were pre-COVID, and that's been good for us. I think we've extended our presence nationally. I think you're right about the partnerships, because we've worked with farms and distributors to actually improve the service to our clients.
Do you think that going forward, because of those relationships that you forged directly with suppliers or producers rather than suppliers, do you think that the face of the liquor chain is going to change considerably as a result of it? Because you can go direct to a producer now, can't you?
Absolutely. I think, I call this lockdown economics. It really changed everything for us. As you say, we saw us compete directly with the wine farms.
Yes.
As much as we love them and we need them and we're the retailer and face to the client, that all changed.
But
so
Jonah,
the
government put us in direct competition with the restaurants that we were supplying, because they gave them the right to sell liquor from the restaurant. So we were actually, not only did we have, during lockdown, the bottle stores weren't allowed to be open, but there were a lot of restaurants that were allowed to be open. People were buying, and the restaurants needed to stay alive. So who can ever bemoan their fate? I mean, you can't say that they weren't allowed to sell booze, and they were. So we ended up from having just retail competition. Not only do we just have retail competition, there's wholesale competition, there's bootlegging competition, and there's restaurants who have become our direct competition because they're allowed to sell booze off-site. It was the most alarming set of circumstances that was badly thought out by the government, I think. Do you agree?
100%. Look, you got to feel for the restaurateurs as well. I mean, thank God they had, they were able to trade on with liquor.
Yeah.
So I think that helped many restaurants survive. I think it was a good thing in the end. But I think, our industry did need a reset.
I agree with you 100%.
And I think that lockdown inadvertently did create some kind of, constructive reset that we will see over the next few months and into the year.
Yes.
Certainly, we can see it in the supply chain, definitely in the wholesale market. I think it's going to improve the experience to the customer.
And going forward, I mean, anybody who doesn't know Dry Dock Liquors, it's just such a cutie pie shop. You feel like you're in downtown New York or London or somewhere. It's a little hole in the wall from the road in the high street of Parkhurst. Have you been, Alec? Justy, have you been?
I haven't been, Carrie, but I am what I like to call a Parkhurst veteran when it comes to a Saturday.
No, you've got to stick your head into Dry Dock.
Jonah, I'm sure I'll see you sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. And, we're always tasting. So,
tasting.
Oh, my God.
Nothing gets on the shelf without us tasting it.
You know what it is? They've got... It reminds me very much of Norman Goodfellows in the old days when we used to trade off the pavement because the shop was too small to fit everything into it. And that's exactly what Dry Dock Liquors is now. They trade loads of stuff off the pavement. So you walk along the pavement and you see barrels and boxes and glasses. It's right next door to a coffee shop. So you can actually pull up a bench and have a coffee and chat to Jonah or Martin or any of the staff who are all very well informed.
And taste.
Jonah, what time's tasting tomorrow?
We open at 9.
You see.
So we taste right through.
Now you have my attention.
And we don't judge.
No, please don't judge the BizNews team. Please don't judge the BizNews team. So what's
But I think, Carrie, I was just reminded, of the story. Our store is probably 80 square meters. It's still smaller than Norman's first store, right? Maybe 100 square meters.
I don't even know if we were 100 square meters. My Jewish partners wouldn't have paid for those extra 20 square meters. I can tell you that right now. But if I remember, that's just a joke, by the way. we had a store in Hyde Park, which was also 80 square meters. So I know what it's like to try and trade out of that. And you have off-site storerooms, and Mrs. Rigby Jones comes in and Mr. Rabinovitz comes in, and they say, we want it and we want it now. And you say, yes, sir, it's just downstairs. And you send Rufus in the bucky quickly, like tearing like a bat out of hell, to the storeroom to go and fetch. It's hard to trade out of an 80 square meter store, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's why we're so grateful for the online business, because it's, sometimes in peak trading hours, it can look like a warehouse rather than a boutique store. So we got to trade off the pavement. And I think most people, around Parkhurst are, like that. They want to see small business grow and succeed. So fortunately, it's a good thing. One or two people do frown on it, of course.
Well, I love that high street trading. I think it's brilliant. It's very reminiscent of England, where you go to Mr. So-and-so, the butcher, and then you ramble along to Mrs. So-and-so, the baker. And the vibe is brilliant.
And Cape Town, does Cape Town have an equivalent to Parkhurst?
Caroline's fine wine store, she's got a similar one, but she's so refined and elegant. She's nothing like Jonah and Martin, who are absolute gangsters. But you do have to
too much credit.
You do all have to make a point of swinging by 4th Avenue in Parkhurst as soon as you can to go and visit them. It's a charming, enchanting little store that has an amazing range of wine. I don't want to say that one of you must have a favorite, because you pride yourself on being wine and spirits, I think. But the wine is far more impressive than anything else. It's a must go to on any given weekend.
What time tomorrow, Jonah?
9. Just use the BizNews code.
9 in the morning, Jonah. 9 in the morning.
Yeah, use the BizNews code.
Jonah, I've heard of breakfast beers before. It rolls off the tongue really nicely. But if you're tasting wine at 9 o'clock in the morning, what is that called?
Oh my God, I don't know.
A good time.
Jonah, thank you so much for joining us on BizNews. As ever, you're just such good company, and good luck. I know that you've survived COVID, and I know that you'll go on to grow. And I'm really pleased to hear that you've established your online business. That's fantastic news.
Brilliant. Thank you.
You're listening to the BizNews Power Hour, brought to you by the team at biznews.com. You see, Jared, we've got Cape Town in Johannesburg. You just need to know where to look. So Parkhurst, but aren't you a little concerned at your colleague here who wants to go and start drinking wine at 9 a.m.? Oh, no, sorry, we're not allowed to judge, are we?
I mean, as long as it's not Monday to Friday, it should be fine.
Festive Friday, it is indeed. Well, before we let you go, just to remind you that there is no BizNews Power Hour on Monday. We're also going to take a little break because, well, there's not a heck of a lot happening in South Africa when you have long weekends.
At the moment, he's exhausted.
Not at all, but it is there's not a whole lot of news that happens on a Monday, and we don't want to bore you. That's the worst thing, isn't it?
No, we don't want to be boring.
So one thing about radio that still astonishes me is how much boring radio there is, because people get away with it.
And why do people even tolerate boring radio?
Well, no one listens. But no one knows that no one listens, so it just continues.
Oh, guys, please tell us that you're listening to our Power Hour. Do they listen to our Power
No,
Hour?
we get plenty. We get plenty feedback.
Okay,
you're on YouTube. Show them the wine. You actually are drinking wine, aren't you?
We're drinking wine. We're actually drinking
in the studio. Now, I promise you, no other media company in South Africa will allow you to drink in the studio. And we are.
We've got this huge, unbelievable boss that we work for. He is
exactly.
Yes, to Mr. Hogg.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Before we let you go, let's find out what happened on the markets from BrightRock, which believes that with every change in life comes opportunity, and the markets aren't any different. The daily movements in the markets mean change for us all, sometimes small, sometimes big. This daily market report is made just for you by BrightRock, the first ever needs-matched life insurance that changes as your life changes. Justin?
The JSE All Share Index was up at 67,300. The highlights included Asset Manager 91, up 2.5% to a shade under $50 a share. European mall owner Nepi Rockcastle was up 3.4% to 98 Rand a share. Discovery was down 2.25% to 130 Rand a share. And in the US, Coinbase is slightly up at $300 per share, despite Bitcoin being in free fall. In the currency markets, the Rand was weaker against all the major currencies to 14 Rand 29 cents to the dollar, 19 Rand 80 cents to the sterling, and 17 Rand 23 cents to the euro. Gold is down at $1,775 an ounce. Brent crude is trading at $66 a barrel. The premier cryptocurrency will put you back 710,000 Rand a Bitcoin.
710,000 Rand for one Bitcoin.
For one Bitcoin.
Yeah, it was, as we were saying earlier, 922,000 Rand 10 days ago. But who can bet against it?
Can't be wrong. Have you boys been drinking before I got here? 710,000 Rand for one Bitcoin.
That's it. That's it.
Guys, I hope
$50,000. That doesn't go a long way in rands.
Hope you all have a brilliant long weekend.
Bitcoin trades over the weekend, so you're going to have to be careful there, Gary.
This market report was made just for you by BrightRock, the first ever needs-matched life insurance that changes as your life changes. You're listening to the BizNews Power Hour, brought to you by the team at biznews.com. Well, that brings to an end our festive Friday. Jared Neves in the studio in Cape Town. Jared, what are you doing this weekend?
Not much, and I'm happy about that.
Well, I know. I tell you what, talk about people who work hard. Hey, Jared, he keeps the wheels going.
She just drives around in cars all day. That's
if only.
That too.
We love you, Jared.
We know exactly what Justin's going to be doing tomorrow, 9 o'clock. What's the place called?
Dry dock.
No, Alec,
Dry
I've got a big exam in 5 weeks, Alec. I'm going to be a little bit more responsible than that.
And Carrie, you got a big weekend planned?
Absolutely nothing. I am chilling. I'm Netflixing. I'm gardening. I'm playing with my puppies. I'm relaxing.
Well, it's a good way to spend a long weekend.
What are you doing,
Well,
Alec?
I'm trying to get a golf game together for Monday, but my pal Manny says he's got to man the shop. So I don't know what we're going to do. We'll find a way.
We'll
I'm
get
sure.
his wife to man the shop. She's much better at it than he is.
Oh my goodness. Well, thanks very much for being with us through this week. We'll be back again on Wednesday with the BizNews Power Hour and a lot more sober at that time. This is Festive Friday, and we do try and what did you say earlier? Drop your drawers or what did
Park
you
station.
Oh.
So my mother always used to say, just maintain your decorum. Don't drop your drawers in Park Station.
You've been listening to the Power Hour, brought to you by the team at BizNews. Well done, Jared. Well done. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Have
Bye.
a lovely, lovely weekend and have a good rest, eh?
Thanks, you too.
Okay, catch up next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh my God.
What?
No way.
Gary. Naughty.
She's bad.
Now